Welcome back. 40 minutes almost past the hour. Iran issuing new threats that it started cruise missiles capable of sinking large warships. The country also says it will move Navy ships closer to U.S. shores. Joining us right now is Nathan Carleton. He's the press director at United Against Nuclear Iran. He also served on the National Security Council under President George W. Bush and used to work with our Tony Snow, who we loved here. He was a wonderful colleague of ours.
He really was.
Welcome. Thanks for being here today.
No problem.
So, Iran, no stranger to saber rattling. Ahmadinejad's always throwing out these fiery rhetoric. Do they have the goods to back it up? Is it just saber rattling right now?
Right now, I think it is just saber rattling. Iran's navy is very small. I doubt the U.S. military is losing much sleep over this. But what it shows is that this is a regime whose foreign policy is based on confrontation and threat. And what would make this a very serious matter is if Iran were to succeed in its quest for developing nuclear weapons. Then this would be extremely serious, and that's why the world needs to do whatever it takes to prevent Iran from going nuclear.
There's constantly, once again, saber rattling from Iran on that subject as far as whether or not they do have them or not. Give us the latest update on that situation there.
Well, you hear different estimates, maybe 1 year, maybe 3 years. Whatever is right, they're close, and so the world needs to do whatever it takes, because that would be the worst option of anything, is having a country that works with terrorists and threatens the U.S. and its allies having nuclear weapons.
You mentioned our military not really feeling like this threat of having these Navy ships from Iran basically up there along a sea presence along the marine border with the East Coast. Not really a concern for our military. And actually, Pentagon Press Secretary George Little said, I wouldn't read too much into what came out of Iran today. What is said, what is actually done can be two different things. So folks who live on the East Coast hearing about this might be a little nervous about it. Tell us why this shouldn't be an issue. I mean, they're talking about having cruise missiles as well, 124 miles they can travel, blow up a U.S. warship.
Right, like me, I'm sure you trust the U.S. military to protect the nation from threats, whether they're...
Trust them a little bit more than I trust Iran.
Sea, the air, the ground, but it's very scary that a country that would threaten this, which is, like I said, called for our destruction, and which is allied with terrorists, including even Al-Qaeda, would be saying things like this while it's trying to develop a nuclear weapon. We just can't let that happen.
Does Iran want to be known as a superpower?
They obviously want to. They'd be closer if they had nuclear weapons. They're losing power in the Middle East. Maybe they're jealous of Turkey these days from what's happening in their neighboring countries, but like I said, the worst thing that could happen is if they succeed in their quest for nuclear weapons.
In your estimation, is the United States, is the world doing enough to ensure that they don't succeed in those aspirations?
Well, it's not doing enough. The sanctions against Iran that the U.S. and its allies have imposed have been effective, but more can be done.
Like what, for instance?
Well, 90 senators recently called on the Obama administration to sanction the Central Bank of Iran. I think they should do that right away. Other countries...
We always hear sanctions don't work. Sanctions don't work. They haven't done anything. They end up saying, to the sanctions anyway.
Even Iran has said the sanctions work, but they need to be tougher. Some of the U.S.'s allies need to get tougher.
But we don't believe what Iran says, do we?
No. Well, they are working. Maybe it's the people of Iran that are suffering more than the regime. But if some of the U.S.'s allies in Europe were to crack down more on their companies, some of these European companies are doing business in Iran. And if those governments, like the U.S. has done, would bar that, say that a company in this country cannot do business in Iran, they would be tougher, and maybe Iran would see that it's in its interest to change course.
Nathan Carleton, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Please join us.
Sure.
All right, let's go out to Dave and Clayton. They are down in the control room.